my book on Islamophilia, it's not actually currently available, which is rather annoying. It's undergoing a brief rewrite and a reissue quite soon. But I came up with the term Islamophilia because, really, first of all, I've become so bored of hearing what I think of as being its sort of opposite, the word Islamophobia, which had been around for so many years and meant so little, or at least what it did mean was so wrong and so irritatingly wrong. I thought something far more prevalent was not a phobia, certainly not an irrational fear of Islam, but a sort of a weird love of Islam, not by Muslims, but by non-Muslims. It'd be understandable for Muslims to love Islam. It was just rather strange that so many people who were not Muslims, and in many cases seemed to know absolutely nothing about Islam, were so enamored of the religion. And I just have been noticing this for a long time. Everyone from actors and movie stars to prime ministers and presidents, who would be critical, and understandably and rightly critical, of any and all belief systems, should there need to be, but who, when it came to Islam, only talked in this sort of slathering of praise and adoration. I mean, I lost count of the numbers of politicians who started in the last 15 years quoting in speeches their favorite bits of the Quran. It's the sort of, why are you doing that?
And of course, Barack Obama said that the most beautiful sound is the call to prayer, right, of the Hazan.
Yeah. There were so many cases of it, and to my mind, it seemed far more prevalent and obvious than, as I say, its opposite. So no, my personal favorite is an exhibition called 1001 Islamic Inventions, which toured the science museums of the Western world, including America and Great Britain and other countries. And this exhibition basically advocated, it was totally anti-scientific, really. It was an act of proselytism by the Muslim Brotherhood, is how it started out. But this exhibition basically posited that Islam had invented the entire world, not just the creation of the world, but everything since. Landscape gardening and also urban planning. Almost all successes of science, cinema, and it did this amazing sort of Soviet style reverse engineering on history and indeed on facts, and because it was 1001 Islamic inventions, it passed muster. I mean, if anyone had tried to claim that any other religion had sort of been responsible for absolutely every scientific invention, then people would raise an eyebrow and certainly wouldn't hand over the Science Museum in the national capital to such a piece of casuistry. But on this occasion they did, and as I say, that's an example of Islamophilia right in front of you.
I've actually been exposed to this type of thinking in my own scientific work, where someone, usually from that part of the world, or at least of that faith, will write to me to say, oh, but you know that Charles Darwin is not really the guy who should be most known for the theory of evolution, and then they'll cite some guy, and then through some unbelievably circuitous route of mental gymnastics, the real inventor, discoverer of the theory of evolution is some guy. But I think this is a manifestation of identity politics. I mean, you see the same thing with African studies, right? Right? The ancient Greeks were really blacks, right? And then so every single group that feels somehow aggrieved rewrites history so that all of the great wonders of the world are really theirs, right?
Yes, and I mean, my favorite example was the rewriting of the Wright brothers, where the Wright brothers were wrong, that they didn't invent flight, but that flight was invented by a Muslim in, I think, the 10th century, or in Andalusia or something. And the actual historical descriptions of this guy is there was a guy who kept on flinging himself off high buildings and falling to earth at an incredible speed.
Right. Or just jumping from any place and committing suicide becomes the invention of flight, right?
Yeah, and it was really strange because they sort of attributed a man who just plummeted a lot. They attributed to him the gift of sort of the invention of flight. And as you say, I mean, the game is to come up with somebody so obscure that sort of everyone sort of baffled. And because we're all polite, Westerners, if anyone says that anyone else invented anything, we're like, well, sure, it sounds good. Who would I be to
Right.
produce any counter facts?